The following presentation is rated TVMA.
Welcome back, everybody, to this first season, book 3 of the Vicious Lost Boys series. I am Emerald Nix.
And I am Nixie Raven.
There you go. And as you can see, Miss Kitty is not with us today. That is okay. We can do this. We will miss her, but she will be with us next week. We are talking about Their Vicious Darling.
We are.
This book,
I actually, of the 3 that I've read so far, this one probably plot-wise kept my attention the best.
It was
I
a good
the plot of this book better.
Yeah, this one was very, very well written, with that plot thickening as it got deeper into it. Now, does that mean that there was not sex and gratuitous scenes? Please, we would not be sluts for smuts if it was not. Come on now, guys. You know better. But this is the one. So in the last book, it ended with her turning around and her eyes being black.
Yeah.
Now in this one, my favorite character comes in. Out of all of the books, my favorite character comes in. And that is the wolf. Hands down.
Yes.
The wolf is the absolute best character of
Balder. I love it.
Whole thing. He is snide, he's a smart ass, and he's just too perfect for the book. I love him to death. And that's kind of where this one opens up. The boys come home from getting the shadow, and they go looking for her, and they find her in bed with a wolf. Now, myself personally, I mean, I sleep with my dogs all the time, but this is a weird wolf, right?
Right. So the wolf enters into the book as they're walking back from Hook's side of the island, and they're coming up to the treehouse, and this wolf just walks out onto the path and like sits down in front of them, and they're like, this is really weird. Peter's like, go home, wolf. Wolf turns around, runs, but he doesn't run back into the woods. He runs to the treehouse.
The treehouse, of course.
So then they get into the treehouse, and at first he can't find her, so he's freaking out, screaming at the top of his lungs. They find Cherry.
Fucking
Cherry. So, fucking Cherry. So they finally figure out that she's in her room and she's in bed and she's curled up, and this wolf is like sitting next to her, curled up next to her on the bed. Cherry's sniveling in the corner because she's guilty as shit. So Pan comes in and she's sleeping. And he's like, what the hell is going on? Vane's like, why the fuck didn't she go downstairs? I told her to go downstairs. Why did she not follow my directions? So she kind of wakes up at that point. She was like, yeah, I'm good. Just let me sleep. It'll be all right. And they're like, okay,
Yeah, sure. Let's
let's
just
go.
you're gonna sleep. It's okay. Strange
Yeah,
wolf in your bed, whatever.
cool.
But he does
Nice
leave
to
the
see him
twins, of
laying next
course.
to you.
Has
So,
to leave the twins. And then,
so then she wakes up.
of course,
She's like, oh my God, there's a wolf in my bed.
eek! No, she never does that. But she goes down to get food. And then, of course, there is the gratuitous sex. Because, I mean, why wouldn't there be? And
Yeah.
she ends up passing out. And then my second favorite of all characters comes because they don't know who else to call, right? So they call Smee.
Right.
So Smee has to come. And Smee has the best line ever. My favorite line. One of my favorite lines. I mean, I can't choose my favorite lines because why? Because I love all of them. I love the whole book. The book is great. But she says to the boys, give me a second. My book is taking forever. Apparently my book doesn't want to pull up today. She says to the boys, and I'm just going to quote roundabout because I can't pull it up. She says to the boys something about like, stupid men can't see the power that is staring them in the eyes.
Yep.
Because she can see the shadow.
Yep. She knows it's there.
And the men are completely oblivious, but they still suspect fucking Cherry.
They do. And poor Cherry. I mean, I kind of feel for Cherry a little bit. Because, like, she gets traded off from her brother for Smee, and she has to live with these lost boys, and all she wants is to fit in. And they all kind of treat her like shit. She is a pick-me. I'll give her that. She's
She
a
doesn't want to
pick-me.
fit in. She wants to fuck Vane. Come on.
You also find out in this series, though, that she had a pretty decent relationship with the twins, too.
She did. She did. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the twins are kind of like soft.
They are. They're the heart of the group.
They are. Because we both know Peter Pan is not the heart of the group.
No.
Peter Pan is not a heart. So then, and the book starts out, like, if you guys have not read this book, I'm so sorry, you really need to, because the book starts out with Croc on a ship coming to Neverland from Darkland with a bunch of royals that are all stuck up, obviously. And he's having sex with all of them but one, the man. But he is going to meet the Queen of the Fae because she has called for him. And he has plans to go talk to his brother because he wants his brother to give up the Darkland Shadow to the Darkland Royals, as he should.
Mm-hmm.
But at the point in the book where Winnie passes out, Croc is on the land. So it flips from there to where he is talking to the Queen of the Fae, the twin sister, and of course the Queen of the Darkland and her brother and her sister and her entourage and the whole hoopla of all of that. And they're talking about the whole war and how they're going to get back at Peter Pan and how they're going to get the Dark Shadow. And Tilly kind of drops the bomb on Croc.
Mm-hmm. That Wendy is still alive and somewhere on the islands.
And somewhere on the islands. She never left the islands. Which, of course, sends him into a tizzy. He rushes to find his brother and to talk to Peter Pan, because now he just wants to get... You don't like the Queen. I'm not a fan of her either. She's a selfish little bitch. But yeah. So Croc rushes to his brother, and he is having a conversation with Cherry, trying to get to the gist of what happened. And Peter Pan is gone. He's not there when he gets there. Can't find Winnie either, because they are in, of all of the names to name a town, Darlington. Where people, more than half of its citizens are named some form of darling.
Yep.
Their waitress is Darlena. If I walked into a town where half of the residents had my last name as some form of their name, I'd be a little creeped out.
Right?
I'd be a little creeped out. But this is where they discover that she has the dark shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Croc shows up, and then the Dark Queen shows up. And of course, the Dark Queen doesn't know how to keep her little hands to herself. So she goes after Peter Pan. And Winnie, who is not jealous, doesn't have a problem with it, but the shadow doesn't like it.
Yep. I think this was one of my favorite scenes in the book, just because of the way they described the shift in her. Because, they describe it as, she's standing next to Pan and everything was all good until this queen comes up to him and puts her hands on him. And then they describe her as her head was down, her hair is in her face, and Pan can feel the shadow. He realizes it's there before she snaps. Because in the book, he's like, oh, shit.
Mm-hmm.
But before, he couldn't do anything. It was too late.
He tried. I mean, he did try. He tried to talk her down. But then the Croc, tries to do something. And
Croc pulled a gun on her.
Well, I mean, then it's his own damn fault.
Right?
Right?
She did become a badass, Tracy.
She did become a badass.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And she kills the queen. She kills the princess. And she pretty much damages the fuck out of Croc.
Mm-hmm. Left him for dead in the middle of the pub they were in.
And then, poof, they go away.
Yeah. Pan's like, we gotta go now.
We gotta go. Yeah, let's go. Shoo. Let's out of here. And this is how they discover that she has the dark shadow.
Yeah.
Well, now the Croc is pissed. Because while he was not in love with the queen or the princess, they were his. Because, he a hoe too. And so he decides, we ride at dawn. Well, not dawn, but still.
Well, kind of. I mean, we get to that point, but before he says we ride at dawn, they go back to the treehouse. They do their thing. I'm pretty sure there's a sex scene in there at some point. And then, so we flip back over to Croc, and actually what we do is we flip back over to Hook. And Hook and Smee are sitting there having a conversation, and all of a sudden somebody's knocking at their door, and he's like, are you expecting someone? And she's like, no. Are you? They're like, no. Who the fuck is here? So they go to the door, and here's Croc laid out on the ground, bleeding from the neck, half dead. And he's like, "Hi."
Hi.
Nice to see
I,
you guys.
I need your help. I know I bit your hand
Can
off.
you help me? So, and Hook really has this almost like dichotic thought, because it's like part of him is like, I could murder this motherfucker right now and nobody's gonna say anything. And then the side of him that's all good form is, I can't kill him when he's almost dead. So they bring him in and they put him on the bed, and he looks at Smee and he was like, figure out how injured he is. And she goes, and if he'll live, he goes, well, what did he said, we'll get him back on the mend. We'll take care of him while he's here. And then it was after that scene that him and Hook get into it a little bit. And then he was like, all right, let's go kill some people. And they took off. And that was the beginning of the big war.
Sorry about that, guys.
Bless you.
So then the war consists of Tilly and now the Dark King, because there's no more Dark Queen. And he is just absolutely ready to butcher Croc because he thinks Croc killed everybody. And then Croc and Hook and his pirates, because Tilly doesn't have any men. But before that, before they go off to war, fucking Cherry. We're back to fucking Cherry.
Fucking Cherry.
Fucking Cherry. So as you can tell, this book flips back and forth a lot. This was one of the ones that flipped back and forth a lot, guys. So back to Cherry. So when Smee came to rescue or came to help Winnie, I forgot her name for a minute. When Smee came to help Winnie, she checked on Cherry and they said, oh no, you can't take her right now. We're going to throw a party for her. So they start planning this party. There was actually never going to be a party. They start planning this party. And Vane figures out, now that we know that she has the shadow, who caused the issue. Who did it? Fucking Cherry. So he goes after Cherry. Right. And we learned in book 2, you don't run from the Croc, or you don't run from Vane. But he tells her, run. And she's, of course, terrified. So she takes off running, right? Just takes off running. And he is chasing her. And he almost catches her. And then Smee's badass self comes out and stabs his ass and almost kills him.
Mm-hmm.
So now we know that he can die.
Yep.
So they come rescuing him and rushing him back to the house, to the tree house, to save him. But the only place he can be saved at, of course, is the lake, the pond, the river, the water, whatever. And this is where they decide that they are going to attack him. They're going to attack Peter Pan while they try to save Vane at the lagoon.
Mm-hmm.
So they all converge. And Winnie's in the water with him. And everybody's fighting. And the Croc lets the time run out. And we find out just exactly what he is. Because I was convinced he was a vampire up to this point.
Right. He's not a vampire.
The blood and that, you know what I mean? Like, I was convinced he was a vampire. And then he becomes, it says, like, he seems to grow larger than himself and not, like, he's there, but he's not there. And you can see the Croc portion of him, but it's him. And he just walks up and his jaw hinges and he just eats people whole.
Isn't that a lovely thought?
Isn't that a lovely thought? you know, and then we get like, and it's like this whole, like, in my head, the way I saw it was this man was standing there with like this croc like illusion over him, like,
Okay.
you know what I mean, like transformed, like on top of him. But he goes over and he kills everybody, kills all these people, and he goes like he's gonna go for Hook. But he wakes up just before he eats Hook, spins away. And they get Winnie. Winnie takes Vane up the mountain because they're going to go to the real world. They're going to jump off the side and go to the real world, right? And that's where she gets caught. And the dark guy comes up and he's got this crystal and he's going to steal the shadow out of Vane. And he sucks it out of Vane, and Vane is bleeding from his hole where he got stabbed from Smee. And Winnie loses her battle. Not really loses. I guess it accepts
She
the
didn't
battle.
lose it. She gave it up. She was
I
like,
guess
fine,
like
take
she accepts, right? Like she accepts or like brings in,
lots of
or you
shanking
know,
going on.
they merge together her and the soul, the soul, the shadow,
Right.
like, and the shadow asks, "Is he worth it?" And she says, "Yeah." So she tackles him, and they fall off the cliff into the water, and they didn't die.
Right.
And he is healed, and he has survived.
She tells the shadow, if you take me, you have to take him too.
Yep.
We come together.
And we don't find out until a few minutes later that she split the shadow between the two of them.
Right.
I didn't even know they could do that.
I know, right? And at first, when he first realizes it happened, I couldn't tell if he was mad, if he was happy. Like, at first, you kind of was like, oh shit, he's pissed. He just got rid of one shadow and she just forced another one on him. Oh, he's gonna snap. He really doesn't, though.
He doesn't. He's just like, all right, I'm gonna go kill some people. And she's like, no, we are. And he's like, you're gonna. And she's like, I'm gonna what? And he's like, you're coming with me to kill people. Okay. Because now they can feel each other.
Mm-hmm.
Now they know like what each other's thinking and what each other's feeling. And that'd be weird.
That would be weird.
That would be weird. And the one thing I don't think that they explain throughout the whole book is how that affects their sex life. Now that would have made a gratuitous sex scene. That would have made an amazing sex scene.
I mean, they don't explain it outright, but there are a couple of scenes, especially after Pan gets his shadow back, where he kind of explains the role of the shadow in the sex scenes and how the shadow needs to be satisfied just as much as the human man does. Because in the scene where him and Hook have her like miles up in the air and are fucking her in the clouds,
Vane.
because that can happen.
Her and
Or
Vane.
yeah, Vane, not Hook, Vane. She goes dark, like the shadow takes over, and Pan says to Hook, or Pan says to Vane, "No, don't stop. You know, the shadow needs to be satisfied, or it's not going to get better. This is going to get worse." So there is a role there.
But I
I
was
just don't
talking
know
more
how
along
much
the
of it
lines of
is.
how them feeling each other's emotions and thought patterns and all of that with the shared shadow, how that affects their sex life.
Right?
Because I mean the gratuitous sex with the twins, yeah, she loved it. It was great. You know, them blindfolding her and her not being able to see what was coming next, even with the shadow, like she knew what was going on, whatever. And then being taken up into the clouds and like taken up into the clouds and having I don't even think that whole scenario is even possible. But like, sure, fine, okay, cool. It sounded great.
Look,
I mean, two in I just no.
well, I mean, she was kind of a hoe, so
She's a very big hoe at that point. Like she got two dang dangs in one hoe. That is more than a hoe.
it's a ho.
Like, I mean, two dang dangs in two holes makes you a hoe. So two dang dangs in one hoe makes you a ho ho. I don't
Makes
even
you a
know.
ho-ho.
But that's and you're flying when this happened. Like, come on.
That's
You're
why it's
flying.
fantasy.
Yeah, that's the whole fantasy part about it, because no. Girl, just no.
Tracy, you're killing me.
Mile High Club.
My eye club.
More than a Mile High Club. That's a. So anyway, they go and they fight and they win and they this and they that. Tilly gets away, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And she being Winnie, inflicts the same punishment on the Dark King that he was going to inflict on her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, almost. Like, he told her that she was going to be raped by every man on the Dark Island. And then when she was all done, which, I mean, she a hoe, she might have liked it, we don't know. Then he was going to cut her from tip to stern and let all of her guts fall out.
Right.
So she did that to him. And then someone picked up the rock. Who picked up the rock?
Ooh.
I don't remember who picked up the rock.
I don't
Somebody
remember.
picked up the rock and was trying to suck it in. But it did. Oh, it was the Dark King.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
See,
Pan comes up and he's like, the one thing you don't know about a shadow is the shadow has to pick the human just as much as the human picks the shadow.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
So now
and
we
that
know
was
that
when
part.
Winnie. Yep, that was when Winnie was like, now you're dead.
Yeah, now you're dead. Yeah. Peace out, dude. And so, of course, they all live happily ever after. But that is not how the book ends.
Nope.
That is not how the book ends. Of course, no, that could not be how the book ends.
No, of course not.
So the croc and the
So
hook.
I think before we hit this, let's back up just a little bit, because I feel like we missed a really important piece of this.
Did we?
So going back to like the very beginning of the book, when we talk about the wolf, we talk about Balder. Now, Balder, hands down, my favorite character in the book. I agree with you 100% on that. I love the wolf. So when Balder is in the bed with Winnie in the scene where she's sleeping it off, the twins are talking about remembering having a wolf when they were a child.
That they named Balder.
And they named the wolf Balder.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this wolf, and they grew up with the wolf, and their mother didn't like the wolf. Now, remember, their mom is Tank. And so at some point, Tank makes them put the wolf outside. And then the wolf disappears. Tank tells them it ran away. They later found out that it was in the lagoon. And we will come back to the rest of this in just a minute. We do need to take a quick commercial break, but we will be right back.
Rise and shine, my sinners. When Father Evil starts his day, he gets a little deadly. Deadly Grounds coffee has the richest, smoothest flavor you'll find anywhere. It's sinfully delicious. Once you go deadly, you never go back. Order yours at getdeadly.com. Coffee's so good, it's scary.
I'm definitely going to get me some of that coffee so I can stay up and read the next book, because I can't wait. I can't wait to see where this goes. Like, I'm just so excited.
Sinful coffee, sinful books. Isn't it? It's a perfect match.
Right? Exactly.
So, the wolf. So the boys tell us the story about how they have a wolf. Mom makes Wolf disappear. They later find out that Mom threw Wolf into the lagoon. Now, if you go back into book 1, book 2, you remember that the lagoon doesn't give its treasures away unless you're worthy. That's how they ended up with the seashell that was the anchor for the shadow, because Wendy's mom was able to pull it out of the water. Now, as they're sitting in this bedroom with her, they're talking about their wolf. And he says the wolf's name. He says Balder. And this wolf on the bed lifts his head up and he looks at him. And the boys kind of look at each other and they're like, "You don't think." And then one of the twins goes, "Balder." And the dog starts wagging its tail and lifting its head up. And you could tell that it's acknowledging the fact that it is that wolf. So this wolf was returned from the lagoon after many, many years of being dead. Or at least assumed dead, but we don't really know what happens to things when they go into the lagoon. So one of the lines that came up during that scene was they were talking about their nan, which I'm assuming is their grandmother, or it might have been their nanny. I don't know.
No,
And
it's their
what she
grandmother.
always told them about the wolves, that they're there to protect. And then they kind of look at that and look at each other and they're like, "Well, what is he protecting her from?" Because it was very clear that the wolf wasn't there for them at this point. It was there for Winnie. And it's really important because the next part, going back to the end of the book, where we see Winnie murder the guy, and then they all go back to the house. And it's help me out here, because I don't really remember how the end of it all played out.
The war or the wolf?
The end of she got done killing the king.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens after that? Where does it go after that? It is crazy, Tracy. It jumps around so much at the end of this book.
It jumps around so much. It goes. They go back to. I don't remember where the wolf went after that, because I know he was there for a while and then he disappeared. Like, he only shows up when he feels like it. Like when he's trying to protect Winnie from something or someone, but he chooses what he's going to protect her from.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, when they go back, I think he just kind of strolls in, and it's like, "Where were you? You could have helped us at the lagoon." But like, it's just really weird. Like, the dog is just really weird. The wolf is just, but I love his snarkiness. You know what I mean? But like, it's just weird. But I know that Hook and Vane go back to his place to lick their wounds.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to eat. Exactly. He probably did go to eat because that's his favorite pastime. They go back to lick their wounds.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to think if there was like another battle or something, because I know that.
No, I think after Croc went all, "I'm going to eat everything," he passed out. And at that point, I don't remember who said it, but somebody said he'll be out for 3 or 4 days. Use your time wisely, or something along those lines. So then Hook has to drag him, because all of his pirates are dead at this point.
That's
Hook
right.
has
Vane
to drag him back from Pan's side of the island all the way back over to his side of the island.
Yep. Vane's just like,
with you.
He went full Croc, and it's gonna take him a couple of days. So good luck with that.
So then Hook gets back to the other side of the island, and he's standing there with Smee, and they told him, "Get off my island. You're not welcome here anymore. You don't have any more pirates. You're done. Leave."
Yep.
And so, yeah, you're not welcome here. Leave. And so they get back over to Hook's place, and Hook's talking to Smee, and Hook goes, "Oh my God, does he know?" And he's talking about Wendy. Now, at some point during the beginning of this book, Croc finds out that Wendy was pregnant on the island. And he figures out that he, being the type of person and species that he is, does not procreate easily. That is a direct quote from the book. So he figures out that Hook got his Wendy knocked up.
Yeah. So Smee tells Hook about Wendy being on the island. Did not tell him that she was pregnant or anything like that. Just says that she's still here. So he packs up and he's mad at her because she stabbed him in the back. She didn't tell him that Wendy was still on the island. She knew and didn't tell him. So now he's just like, I don't even want to look at you. You just made me mad. And she's like, well, I'm not going with you. And he goes, I know. Packs up and he sails off because he's got to rescue Wendy. Now he still doesn't know she's pregnant or was pregnant.
Right.
Then the Croc wakes up. And the Croc says to Smee, did you tell him? Does he know that Wendy was pregnant? Did you tell him that you took the baby out of this world into the other world?
Mm-hmm.
And she says, no. And it ends with, I think it ends there.
No. They go back over to the treehouse again.
Oh, yeah.
And they're all in bed together, the four of them. And he wakes up to go downstairs to get coffee and have a moment to himself. Pan, this is. And he's standing in the kitchen and he hears something out on the porch or out on the balcony. And he goes to walk out on the balcony. He stops.
That's right.
And
because just before that, you see Tilly pulling the chair that is wrapped in dark magic to the lagoon.
Yep. And dropping it in as a sacrifice.
Pushes it into the lagoon as best she can, and it sinks down. And she sits there and waits, and all of a sudden, who pops up? We don't know, because it cuts to the next scene. Of course it does, because that's, any good book does that. So then we have the whole Croc thing, and then we go back over here, and Peter Pan is sitting there, and he sees somebody, and who is there, Nixie? Who is there?
Tinkerbell.
Tinkerbell.
Brought back from the dead by the lagoon. And the reason why I brought up the wolf being brought back is because now we know that the lagoon has the mysterious ability to bring people back from the dead. So, of course, Pan is mildly freaking out at the fact that his former best friend, the mother of his twins, and the rightful heir to the throne of the fairy realm, is standing on his balcony.
AKA the psycho bitch from hell.
Yes. Psycho bitch from hell, indeed.
And now we have to figure out what she wants.
But we don't get to learn that until book 4.
Oh, I know. But book 4, I can't wait. So other than the really impossible sex scenes, I don't think this one was too bad on the gratuitous sex. I think this one had more of a plot base.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot more action-packed than gratuitous sex.
Yes. There was a lot more substance, a lot less sex. in this. You really got a lot of the backstories for the different characters kind of plugged in, and pieces fell into place that you didn't know before. So
Yes.
it really cleared up a lot of the holes in the plot lines from book 1 and book 2, which was kind of nice. Oh yeah, she probably is coming after Pan.
She's coming after Pan. I mean, he killed her.
Right?
And he does
stole her
try
kids.
again. I'm not even going to lie, guys. He does try again. First thing out of his mouth is, I don't believe in fairies. And of course, Tinkerbell just goes, because, you know, it doesn't work. Because she
Right.
already did. You can't
Zombie
kill
fairies?
somebody that's already dead.
Zombie fairies.
Zombie fairies.
Zombie fairies.
Yes.
We need a meme for that next week.
We need a name for that next week. Definitely. Yeah. So now we have weird ass vampire crocodiles, death shadows, life shadows, and vampire fairy, or not vampire, zombie fairies.
Talking wolves.
Talking wolves.
Mind reading. Well, mind reading talking wolves. I don't think the wolf actually talks. I think it just does like the mind talking thing.
Yeah, the projecting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, he's still funny.
He is. He's
still funny
hilarious.
as fuck. I mean, like, he's funny. And of course, who is still alive? Fucking Cherry.
Fucking Cherry.
We cannot get rid of her. Like, still alive after all this time. Fucking Cherry. That's right.
So what happens to Cherry? Because I know Hook was told to take her back to his side of the island, but I don't think he did.
Yeah, she was in his island. She was on his side of the island. She was in his house, because at one point you see them talking in her old room, and she's looking at the pictures that she had on the wall and how she was such a fanciful child. But after that, you really don't hear about her. You really don't see what happened to her. You don't know if she goes with off with Hook or not, because it doesn't say. Is she still on the island with Smee? Is she with the Croc or with Hook? We don't know. She wasn't in the war, so she has to still be at the house unless she took off with Hook.
Right. Although I wouldn't be surprised if in book 4 we see Cherry and the Croc hook up at some point, because he did take a liking to her in the one scene with Vane when he comes in and he tackles Vane at the treehouse, and he like kisses her hand, and Vane like smacks his hand away, and he's like, "Stop it."
Yeah. And she twittered, and he says, "Where would I find one Peter Pan?" And she's like, "In the house." Fucking Cherry. And maybe in, book 4, we will see them together. We have to wait until book 4. But for now, we must pause for another commercial break.
Yes, we must.
We must.
A funeral parlor? Way out here? I can't believe we're gonna party here. Now it's time for party games.
Yeah.
How about a past life seance? A seance?
What the hell was that?
They're pure evil. They're demons.
Oh, don't tell me you're leaving. you're going. The party's just begun.
Night of the Demons.
And rest assured, we've got something wonderful planned for you.
Woo, Buzzkill is looking excellent for Thursday. I can't wait to see that one. And then we have the Chronic Sports tomorrow night. Looking forward to that one too. Can't wait for either one of them. Super excited. Go us. Go team.
Watch, like, share.
Watch, like, share. So we got to wait for book 4 to see what happens to Cherry. We got to wait for book 4 to see wait for book 4 to see what happens to any of them, really. Because now we know she has the shadow. Now we know that she shares the shadow with Vane. So now Peter Pan has a shadow. Vane and Wendy have a shadow. And that still leaves the twins kind of out in the open doing the twin thing.
You know,
What
there is
happens next?
one piece of this plot that I've been pondering on.
Ooh, tell me.
You have Wendy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wendy is the darling that never left the island, but she was pregnant when she was on the island, right?
Mm-hmm.
So somehow this child ends up back in normal society, back in the real world. And we
Smee
know
took
that
it.
Smee is the one that got her there,
Yep.
right? How did Peter know that? Or how did Pan know that? Because Pan's been going and plucking darlings out of the real world. If he knew that Wendy was still on the island and she was the like great grandmother of Winnie, he would have had to have known, number one, that she was pregnant, and number two, that child was returned to the real world in order for him to know that he had to go get said darlings from the real world to bring them back to try and get the information to find his shadow. So who spilled the beans?
But aren't we still working on the assumption that it was a sister?
I don't know. I don't know, because I'm still also very confused about which darling died. Because if you think about it, Wendy was the great grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
You have Mary, that is Winnie's mother. Now, I'm pretty sure Mary was the sister of whoever died. I haven't been able to confirm that yet. I've been looking, but the resources are kind of thin on this series. I think the one who was killed was Wendy's daughter.
But they called the
Mary's
case
sister.
that they have the case of their great grandmother, whatever, Wendy darling. So they have Wendy's travel case, and they call her the great grandmother.
Right.
And I believe in book 1, when she has her vision, she sees Wendy getting stabbed. But it doesn't say that she died.
That's valid.
It says she was stabbed. And she woke up because Vane took her out of the dream, like took her out of it. So she woke up before she died. So it is very possible, in my imaginated world, for Wendy to have been brought back, cured, and then when he went to take her home is when he dropped her off at another island because, things got complicated, and he left her there. But there's no guarantee that he knows that she was pregnant. But he probably does, because, he's Peter Pan. Like, whatever. Who knows? Right. But even if he didn't know that she was pregnant, he would have taken any of the females born out of that line because of that bloodline remembrance thing that he seemed to think was going on.
Right.
Which apparently was going on because, Winnie knew about the thing. But it's very possible that he knew that she was pregnant. Because he did rescue her from Hook and Croc.
Right. The other thing that keeps spinning in my head with all of this is, wouldn't it be some shit if Hook isn't the father? Pan is.
That'd be gross.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
But I
it's
mean, also, it'd be gross if like Croc was the dad,
yeah, that's valid.
because like that would be like Vane's niece, couple of times
Must,
over, whatever. But like,
yeah, that's like I'm my own grandpa level stuff.
right? Yeah. Obviously, at that point, Neverland would be from Arkansas, and the tree never branched.
It's just
Just find that.
it's a stick.
But I mean, you know what I mean? Like, but we had to wait for book 4. Book 4.
We do. And it's coming next week. We'll talk about book 4. So if you
excited
haven't
about
read
book
it yet, go ahead and get it read.
Yeah, if you guys have not read book 4 in the Vicious Last Boys series, let's get it read. Because we need to read this book.
Mm-hmm.
It is a thing.
So do you think Winnie's going to keep the shadow?
I do, yeah. I do. I think she's going to keep the shadow. Because I think now that it's split, it's not going to be too much for either one of them. And if it becomes too much for either one of them at any point, or starts to build to that point, the other one's going to know.
Right.
So it's like, hey, Vane, I can feel you're getting like overstimulated, over anxious, over whatever the fuck you want to call it. Let's go have some sex.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he doesn't even have to cut her open anymore to do it.
Right? Doesn't even have to do that. I mean, he's still a masochist. So, I mean, there's still going to be that part. But,
I think one of my favorite parts of this book, one of my favorite scenes, is it was actually one of the debaucherous sex scenes. But it's the scene where they are in the treehouse. It's right before they go up into the sky. And she is like, he tries to use the terror on her and it doesn't work. And he's like, why isn't that working? Pan's like, maybe she just figured out how to like stop you from doing it. And the whole time that he's like trying to dominate and control, she's just like, no, try again. You didn't do it.
not gonna happen.
No.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
So then he tells her, run. And she
Yep.
takes off out of the house. And then the other 3 are like, well, what the hell? You get to go have fun and we don't? And he goes, oh no, we're all gonna play along. Whoever finds her gets to pick the hole. So of course the twins are like, we're game.
We're
And
game.
they take off after her. And then they find her first.
They do.
She gets her, does the things with them. And then Hook and Pan show up. And she looks at, or I keep calling him Hook. Why do I keep calling him Hook? Vane and Pan show up. And she looks at Vane and goes, well, they made me come. You didn't. I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
She got some balls about her now. I like it.
She does, right? Yeah, she's coming into her own, like, and well, I mean, she's coming, that's for damn sure. She coming. She's coming into her own as she gets in, as the story progresses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's her. It's not the shadow. It's her, because she doesn't accept the shadow until towards the end, when she goes into the fight, when she separates between her and Vane. Like, that's when she accepts the shadow.
Right.
That's when the shadow is no longer, like, she's no longer fighting. So it's not the shadow that's making her bold. That's all her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, girl, you getting fancy.
Right?
You getting a little brave, getting a little tush in that bush in that tush. Like, you getting a little pep. Let's go.
Right.
Can she keep it up?
I don't know. I mean, the borderline bratty thing is kind of a cute play between her and Vane. I will say that.
It is.
And I know she doesn't just use it on Vane. She does it with Pan too. The only two that I haven't really seen her bring that brat side out is with the twins.
But that's not their dynamics.
No.
Their dynamic is like completely different. They're the sweet kind, they're the heart of the four of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Vane is very daddy dom kind of like attitude. And Pan's just a dick.
Pan is
like,
just
he's
dick.
just like,
I don't know. There is the one scene where they're sitting there watching the sunrise and he does the like charming thing and she was like, "Oh, what? Get your shadow and now you're a romantic."
right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, the twins are definitely bondage type. Well, one of the twins is bondage type. The other one is just like, I'll do whatever you want me to do as long as I get my dick wet. Like, he doesn't care.
Right. He just likes sex.
Right? I mean, they all like sex, but you know, it's just fun. But I think with the way that was with the twins in the forest and blinding her, and then Vane and I almost called them Hook. Thank you very much, Nixie. Vane and Peter Pan, like, literally lifting her from, like, just poof, plucking her up off the ground. And I still don't think that scene in the sky is even possible. Not even with like hooks and harnesses. It's just not going to happen. But it's interesting to read.
Yeah,
Complete
but
and utter fantasy.
You can't have two of the guys that are the main dynamic of the group able to fly and not have a flying sex scene.
I mean, yeah, we could see it coming.
Yeah. It was kind of predictable.
Yeah. But I thought it would be a little bit more realistic.
Eh.
Because, I mean, if I'm flying, I'm going to be concentrating on not falling.
Valid. I mean, that would take a lot of concentration.
Right?
To keep yourself flying and do all that?
Yeah.
Right.
Right? Like, and at the same time, like, you're flying, holding up somebody, having sex with that somebody while somebody else is having sex with her, and flying. Somebody's going to fall.
Right. Someone's going to die.
Somebody's going to die. Somebody's going to land on the earth, and it's not going to be a soft landing.
Right.
But that is okay. The next book in the series, The Fae. The Fae. If you haven't read it, you have 1 week to read it. Same time next week, 9:30 Central Standard Time, 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, with Kitty, Emerald, and Nixie. Come see us. Tomorrow is Chronic Sports and Buzzkill on Thursday. Goodbye, everybody. See you next week.
Bye, y'all.